Now that we have looked at some of the important aspects of what a good communication is, we now need to look at the various types of communications that you will use in your everyday project engineering duties. There are many types, and each type of communication generally requires or follows a specific format that is provided by your company. And you have your standard forms, and they include a form for memorandums. You'll have a form for safety reports, manpower logs, meeting notes, agendas, and a wide selection of all the specific items that have evolved inside the industry. So you pretty much have a standard, meaning it's a blank form, and you can fill it in as you wish. And as we progress through the academy, these individual functions will be discussed in a more detailed manner. Our big concern within this communication module is to establish the base foundation of communication, which you will use in all these individual management functions associated with you being a project engineer. So basically, we're going to look at the big picture and then dial into the individual functions that it addresses. And also in this section, we will look at many different types of written communications that are part of your everyday work as a project engineer. And we'll first start with a standard letter versus an email. And for many of you, the concept of writing letters as a primary means of job site communication is very foreign. Most likely, you've never done it. And it's really related to your first experiences in school now are about emails and how often are you asked to write letters as part of your duties as a project engineer. Project engineers kind of get stuck into this mantra of just doing emails. That's how we communicate. And what we're saying is you need to broaden your perspective a little bit and understand that writing letters also has an important aspect or an important function and purpose inside the electrical industry. This evolutionary change in the lifestyles of the 21st century, we tend to consider letters as an outdated methodology that has little to no benefit to the management of your projects. And it's funny, in the last 20 years, we've learned how to do emails, but we've been writing letters since 500 BC. And we just dropped all this letter writing as if it meant nothing, and then we just jumped into emails. So there's a lot of things that got dropped in the middle as we shifted from one paradigm to another. And now we're in the process as emails become more of a platform that's existed for a period of time, more of a mature platform. We're starting to realize we need to do a lot of things that we were doing in letters in our emails that we kind of bypassed in this first getting started period with emails. So unfortunately, this new attitude towards communication has created a very short-sighted approach towards the management of project. And it's based on taking the easiest and fastest process of emails to solve management processes. And in some ways, we've kind of taken a lazy approach towards handling a project that results in decreased profitability. The coordination gets all screwed up. Production and client satisfaction are now metrics that are becoming worse, not better. So, and let's try, and to be able to resolve this thing, we really need to look at this from your client's perspective. And, so let's just take a real-time condition in which your vendor is unable to meet his commitment to you, which in turn causes a situation in which you're unable to meet your contractual milestones to your client that are the basis of your contract. So this is pretty serious stuff. So from the client's perspective, and really that's the owner, the guy that's got his money tied into it, this is a major issue for him as he stands to become default to his clients due to your inability to meet your contractual requirements. So this type of situation has huge financial consequences, both to the client and yourself. But to the client, it could cause a loss of a great amount of money, and along with destroying his reputation in the industry, and then placing the problem into the legal system, where it's just open for anybody to see how badly things really turned out. So if you place yourself in the owner's chair for just a moment, you can see that this is a matter of extreme importance that requires a well thought out process of mitigating the problem, which is caused by someone other than himself. So if I were the owner, I'm sitting here going, holy cow, this is about to cost me a ton of money, my reputation. I'm going to have to go through a bunch of lawyers to do this. And I wasn't supposed to do anything. I contracted somebody to do that for me. So it's not far-fetched that if I were that owner, I'd be pretty angry, because here's this subcontractor screwing up, and he's costing me a lot of money. He's injuring my ability to lease out other parts of the building just because it's the negative press that you didn't get it open on time. And then it's under legal proceedings, which everybody, a tenant doesn't want to move into a building that has a cloud of lawyers hanging over it. So you've really damaged him in many ways that you wouldn't think, at first, that this one little issue has all those ramifications, but they do. And so it's no wonder that these owners and the general contractor, really, when you think about it, is the owner's rep. He's going to be twice as upset because he's also being paid to make sure this doesn't happen. So you can see it's a big deal. And you can see that this is a matter of extreme importance that requires a well thought out process of mitigating the problem that is being caused by someone other than himself. So, like I keep going back to, you are going to create anger in a situation like that because you're costing that client money and the whole situation. And I think we could all agree that anyone in that situation would be upset or angered by such a problem, which he paid you a lot of money to take care of. And we're just going to call this a highly charged / elevated situation. So whenever you hear the word highly charged, that means you've got not only business issues at hand, you've also got ego and emotional issues, and a person's reputation and a company's reputation is online. So this is about as difficult as you can get into, and these are really what you're trying to avoid throughout any project. So in this highly charged situation, what do you think is going to happen if you send them a 3-paragraph email and you outline that your vendor failed to perform, and as a result of that, you can't be open on the dates stipulated within your contract with the owner? And, first of all, that's a big deal. I'm going to send you a little 3-page or 3-paragraph deal saying, dear Mr. Owner, I'm sorry, but our vendor has failed to perform as required, and there's no solution to this problem, and therefore you're not able to do this. And I have seen this done several times. A project engineer and or manager thinks, well, this is going to be a real mess. I think I'll just slip it in on a Friday afternoon in the afternoon, so they'll have a chance to cool off before the Monday when we got to deal with this thing. And, I can tell you, and I've seen it more than once, you want to make somebody mad, that's what'll happen. If you don't, first of all, you've sent them an email instead of really brought this thing up and called the guy and said, hey, let me, this is so serious, I want you to hear it straight from me. And then you sneak it in on a Friday afternoon email rush Yeah, you've done everything you can to totally alienate that client from you. And if you alienate that client, you're never going to solve these problems. So, obviously, we can all agree in that situation, everybody would be highly charged over the weekend. And everybody be thinking, how am I going to deal with my tenants and the losses I'm about to experience as the owner on this project? And you would normally think that that would never happen. Would be nobody be that stupid to anger your client and then do it without any respect other than a short email that took only a minute or two to compose. And I can tell you, wrong, wrong, wrong. I mean, and as project managers that have been on, any project manager has been on large projects for a good 10, 20 years, will have, several stories to tell you real life situations that this type of scenario has occurred. And it may not be as big as this one, the fact that you're not able to move a tenant in. But I have seen in many, many cases to where the project engineer, he doesn't understand it, so he's doing the best he can, and all he's been trained to do is emails. So he's not going to write a letter, and he's not going to call the guy because he's just the email dude. And then all of a sudden, you as the project manager find yourself in a really bad situation. And the first time it happens to you as a project manager, even though this is an engineering class, it's so hard for us PMs to think how anybody could be that stupid. How anything like that could ever happen. And, at first I blamed myself as somehow I had screwed up and allowed a project engineer to do this, and, it goes back to why was there no peer review? If in the old days that would have never happened because the project administrator would have had to type it, and then the project manager would have to review it before it ever went out the door. But now we've come up with this beautiful system called an email, and anybody can write an email and hit the send key, and nobody else knows what in the hell was going on until the smoke starts rising on the other side of the trailers, and you've got a lot of really upset people. And then it shifts into the anger stage, as a PM, that you're just simply mad at the project engineer for doing it. You're going to blame whoever you can because it's not your fault. Well, guess what? You're still responsible as a project manager. And so you finally, after a while of getting over being mad, you blow off enough steam, and then you realize that the only thing you can do now is damage control. And in this case, and I've had to do this once or twice, and I'm sure Patty would say the same, and any project manager that's been around a while will tell you the times when you had to be at that client's office 5 minutes before it opens just to make sure you were right face to face in the morning, first thing, to make any apologies and beg for forgiveness, before the guy even gets started. Don't let him even start writing that email to tell you what he thinks, because he's going to be so darn upset. You don't want to have that thing in writing about what he's about to tell you. So, and in a case similar to this scenario, and it was a really big deal, we had to call in the entire staff I actually had to call the staff on a Friday night at home, get everybody's home phone numbers, tell them that, hey, we're going to be on the job site Saturday and Sunday, and it's mandatory, because we had to figure out how to solve this problem that just is about to blow up in our face on Monday morning. And during that weekend, we went through, and there were like 5 or 6 of us working on this one problem. We had to create a presentation that walked through the entire situation, detail the workflow required on the part of all parties related to the problem. And when I say workflow, what was first of all, why did this happen, so that we can at least get beyond the blame game, responsibilities that you had at that time, and then how are you going to solve this problem to where it's not going to damage that owner and client in the end game. Because if that owner gets damaged, you know you're on the bottom end of that. You're going to get killed. And so, and what we had to do in that one is basically come up and write a complete proposal on how to resolve the issue, and, with schedules and everything, so that when they all walked in on Monday morning, we were prepared with a solution that we could all sit down in a meeting. And then we met most of Monday and came up with an answer, and it was successful. And as a result of that, everybody thought it was a great deal because we did what we were supposed to do. We solved the problem. But, here again, using that email by accident can create a lot of problems. Whereas if you'd been smart, you would have actually written a letter and at the same time developed a brief of some sort that detailed the workflow required to resolve it. And then you would have been able to present it in a way that was proactive from day one, instead of having this email that is, always going to haunt you later in life. So, as we can see from this one example, due to the changes in technology over the last 20 years, a situation exists that project engineers only know how to write emails regardless of the situation they're in, because that's what everybody says. Oh yeah, just send them an email. And after a while, your whole deal is just so focused on emails, you don't think about, oh, do I really need to put a better proposal together, a technical proposal, or do I need to do a schedule perhaps that will reflect what needs to happen. And then the other part of that is, one of the biggest problems in the email evolution is there's no peer review. So you as project engineers are kind of on your own. And we know that you're not stupid. Nobody believes that at all. But instead, you've just not been educated as to the different approaches that you can take to resolve issues. And also, what is missing in the whole, the last 20 years is called peer review. And let's go through that just for a moment and say, basically, if you have an issue that is extremely important, or it affects the contract in any way, you ought to be asking your project manager to review your email before you send it out, because he is ultimately responsible for everything that goes on that job, be it cost or contract or anything. So, make sure you at least go talk to your project managers and get them in the loop on the best way to submit the issues at hand in a way that keeps and maintains the confidence that the owner has in you / general contractor, and also in the same turn allows you to finish the job in a contractual format that allows you to get paid. And then we go to one of the big rules in communication. And if there's anything you learn, if you only learn one thing, never, ever give bad news in an email, because it's not going to work for you. And why can't you pick up the phone and at least brief the guy in advance? And if the guy, you can't get a hold of him because he's the same way as all these new technocrats are, that they only take SMSs and they only do emails and they really don't return their calls, then you write them a letter and hand carry it over to them and say, hey, we really need to sit down and talk, and you schedule a meeting or whatever. But just don't send, hey, by the way, Joe, the vendor can't supply the fixtures in time, and you're not going to be able to move those tenants in guess what? You got a problem, right? So, and I keep saying again, never, 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 ever give bad news in an email. And in the next section, we're going to start looking at all the various formats that are available to us to communicate with our clients, vendors, and even our in-house communication that will make you much better by using formats and styles that are really designed or representative of the problems and issues related to your specific problem that you're trying to manage. And by having a full knowledge of all communication formats, you'll be able to separate yourself from most project engineers. And the reason that is because most project engineers today are stuck into only communicating by emails. That's their primary skill, and that's really their only predominant skill. And they really aren't very good at writing a letter or writing a brief or writing a summary, or you just go down the list. There's some, and we're going to go into that in this next chapter, is all the different formats that are available for you to use. And the companies actually have these in forms, so you can use those forms to help you fill in the gaps. So as we go through this, you're going to be able to see that a lot of this work's already been done. It's just been kind of forgotten now that emails have taken over the world at this moment. So we're going to go ahead and move on to chapter 4 at this point.